Sorry to Bother You is a ridiculous, flamboyant, satirical, over-the-top, acid-infused, crazy comedy film that is also one of the most unique movie-going experiences of the whole summer. Now, I went into this film extremely blind to what it was about. I knew who was in it. I knew that Boots Riley directed it, famous rapper, musician, producer. He was in the band called The Coup. And I was very intrigued, but I had no idea what the story was, and I had no idea some of the crazy stuff that happens in it. And that is how I suggest everyone view this film. I'm going to try to be as vague as possible. I'm not going to spoil any of the major stuff that happens at the end. I will give like a baseline plot synopsis here in a second, but try and go into this as spoiler-free and as blind as you can, because you're settling in for a crazy ride that is well worth it. So this film begins with our main actor, Lakeith Stanfield, who's in Get Out. He's also in Atlanta. He plays Cassius, or Cash for short, I guess kind of down on his luck, but he's very wide-eyed and has huge aspirations, and he joins a call center at the start of this film. Very basic, very seems small scale and everything, but right from the beginning you can tell that this film is very satirical. It has something to say about everything. Something to say about race relations. It has something to say about corporate America and how we operate, and how sometimes our relationships in the office life can seem really fake and everything like that. It has something to say about VIP rooms and how sometimes that stuff isn't as cool as you think it is. It has something to say about how white people listen to rap music. It has something to say about everything, and I applaud it for that. It is very good. It's hit or miss with that sometimes, because sometimes I was like, I see what you're trying to get at here, but I'm not like of that mindset. But there was so much stuff in it that like every single person that goes to see this will be like, yeah, that's funny, and I get that reference or whatever. And that's maybe its best like selling point is just like how like satirical and funny it can be about everyday life stuff that we as humans go through, like, inevitably. So from there, as he's beginning to work in the call center, it becomes very evident that this is in a alternate America. It's not quite the one we're living in right now. It's in a different state, I guess. I don't know if it's never like quite clear to me if it's just trying to be like an alternate look at it, or if it's entirely like in the future or something like that. I don't think so. I think it's just an alternate look at America, from the game shows they watch to the businesses and to the relationships with people. It's very clear that this isn't in the America that we live in. There are some really interesting conversations in this movie that I found fascinating, whether it's talking about call centers and how fake and everything you have to be whenever you're working in those, whether it's like taking in like terrible like people yelling at you and stuff like that and just having to deal with it, or the difference between like a sweatshop and slave labor. There's a lot of very interesting and fascinating type conversations that are had in this movie, and that's another one of the best parts of this movie is just some of the interactions between the characters talking about, you know, what's going on in their world and everything like that. And it pertains to ours as well. I said it's satirical, but at the same time you can see parallels with what he's trying to get across. I'm trying to be super vague here so I don't spoil any like the crazy funny moments in this, but there are a lot of them, trust me. The main character here, Cassius, or Cash, is likable enough, I think. Sometimes his decisions I don't think quite line up with what we're told before about him, but that's okay. I realize that people like change their mind depending on what is given to them and depending on their circumstances, that they might need to follow something that wouldn't necessarily be part of their dream or whatever. The character that Tessa Thompson plays in this is probably my least favorite part about the movie. It's his girlfriend. She is very I don't want to say annoying because that's like a cheap word, but she throughout the film she like makes a lot of decisions and stuff that I guess are frustrating, and I see what they're trying to get across with her character. It just was every time like she did something. There's a scene of her. She's like an artist, which is cool, but there's like a scene of her giving her art presentation, and I thought it was a little too ham-fisted, a little too on the nose of what they were trying to get across. But at the same time, there are a lot of likable characters in this. Steven Yeun from he plays Glenn in The Walking Dead is in this, and his character I liked a lot. He is trying to lead like a rebellion of sorts, or start a workers union inside the company, and I really liked him a lot. He gives some funny lines, and like every time like he comes into conversation, like I like kind of like perked up and everything and tried to like listen to what he was saying. Just I guess I really like him as an actor anyways, but he was great in this. And also Armie Hammer randomly I liked a lot in this. Not to say I don't like Armie Hammer as an actor or anything like that. He's great, but his character I don't think he's supposed to be likable at all. I think he's supposed to be like our antagonist or our villain. But some of his delivery of his lines it's just so funny and so like outrageous and everything, and the way the world reacts to his character, specifically in the third act, is just it's crazy and it's so funny to me. The third act specifically in this movie, it just goes bonkers and throws out all their cards and plays all these different beats that I was not expecting at all. I thought this movie was going to go in one direction, and then it like had a hard turn and just went crazy. And I really liked it. I really liked everything they did in the third act. It isn't necessarily like super earned, to be honest, but I really liked what they did. I think a lot of people aren't. I think a lot of mainstream type audiences aren't going to like what happens then. I think some people, it'll just be too much or too crazy for them. Not to sound like pretentious or anything. I hate it whenever people sound like that, but I guess go at your own risk if you don't like weird stuff or like crazy stuff, because I don't know if you'll necessarily like how this ends. Before I kind of wrap this up, one more thing that I wasn't a huge fan of with this, I already talked about Tessa Thompson's character, but there is these pretty large time jumps where it feels like a lot of information gets missed, and we just get exposition telling what happened or where we're at in the story. Exposition's fine in movies, like it's not terrible, but whenever you're like having to communicate like large portions of the movie without showing it, I'm not a huge fan of that, and it knocks this back a little bit for me. Sorry to Bother You was a really fun ride that I enjoyed a lot. It had some great moments in it, really unexpected, and I said it at the start, it's definitely the most unique film this summer. There's nothing else like it out there right now. It has spades of films like Brazil. It also has moments where it's trying to tell you something and trying to get a point across. It's not just like comedy for the sake of comedy. It's comedy that makes you laugh because you're thinking about real world stuff, and has some great performances, a lot of good acting, a lot of surprising actors that I haven't spoiled yet that make appearances in this film. All of this adds up to why I'm giving Sorry to Bother You an 8.5 out of 10. A lot of fun, really funny. I suggest anyone who likes kind of crazy, bonkers type movies to go check it out. Oh my god, I'm so proud of you. You watched all the video. You did it. You made it to the end. And now you can watch me babble more and say more if you go right here and watch one of my old videos. Or go over here and subscribe and watch all of my old videos. And even if you wouldn't do that, I really appreciate it if you scroll all the way down past all these other similar videos to mine that aren't as good and leave me a comment and let me know what you think I did. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much.